Hello all YouTubers, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into the severe weather discussion for June 4th, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe because sadly, tons of my watch time has been coming from unsubscribed viewers. We are on our way to our next goal of 600 subscribers, and thank you guys so much, by the way, for 500 subscribers. Let's get to our next goal of 600 subscribers, alright? So please do subscribe, and also, this applies to every single one of you, please watch the whole video as well as liking and sharing the video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. So for today, we're going to be talking about a severe weather discussion and how we're going to be highlighting 3 areas that have a potential for some dangerous severe weather today. Now, before I get started, I would ask that you please do check out on the top right corner of your screen appearing now my tropical storm crystal ball coverage that will be moving, how a storm could be making landfall on the Gulf Coast. So don't forget to check that out after this video if you haven't already, and let's get started. Now, we're going to be analyzing 3 areas today. Obviously, we'll be doing the models for all 3 regions because I don't want to leave anybody out today. And here's the 3 regions we'll be highlighting that have the highest chance according to the SPC for severe weather. The Mid-Atlantic. So we're talking about the tri-state area, we're talking about Western Jersey, we're talking about Southern Pennsylvania, Eastern West Virginia, Northern Virginia, parts of Northern Maryland, as well as Northern Delaware. Our next region we're going to be highlighting here is pretty much all of South Dakota, Northeastern Nebraska, Central Iowa, Southern Minnesota, and the other region we'll be highlighting is the Texas and Southwestern Oklahoma, as well as Northern Texas, and parts of the Texas Panhandle. Now let's get started here. So tornado threats. Out of the 3 regions that we're covering here, these 2 regions don't have really a tornado threat, although it's always possible, in my opinion here. But 2% chances where they do outline, the SPC does outline that region there from South Dakota down through Iowa. In terms of the wind threat, everybody has the wind threat here. All right, wind threats here. All right, all 3 regions will have a threat of some high winds today, as well as hail, and even a significant threat for hail in that hatched region in South Dakota. But Mid-Atlantic, even South Central, could still have a threat for some hail as well. And in the Northeast here yesterday, we had some pretty intense thunderstorms that moved through. We actually had a derecho that moved through and some very high winds and some heavy rainfall. Didn't last for too long, but it was a derecho, and it lasted and it knocked out power for over 600,000 people here. So it was a pretty damaging line of storms. Now, when you saw your region highlighted in yellow or whatever color, maybe it was green, what does that all mean? Marginal, slight? Well, marginal means isolated severe storms are possible. Obviously, they're limited in duration, they might be limited in coverage or intensity, but they can still produce some hail as you see in that picture. Now, for slight, scattered severe storms are possible. They're short-lived, they're more widespread, but there could be some isolated storms that could be pretty intense. And you can see trees can come down. All right, but whether it's green, marginal, or 5, which is high, which we rarely ever see. All right, the severe thunderstorm is defined by the National Weather Service. Wind gusts need to be at least 58 miles per hour, okay, and or hail, so it can be, or both. Hail needs to be at least 1 inch in diameter or tornado. All right, now, we had 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts here yesterday with that derecho that came through, so that crushed the severe weather category. And we'll be doing another severe weather video soon, probably on the north central U.S. again, because they could have another severe weather threat another day. So stay tuned for that as well. Now, when we look at the Cape, obviously we're going to be doing we're going to be going through the model starting with the Mid-Atlantic region, then going through the North Central, and then the South Central. Now, in terms of the Cape, obviously we do need a surface-based Cape because that's how those storms can really get their act together. They thrive on that heat in the atmosphere, and that we do have the heat there. For Mid-Atlantic, it is definitely there. All right, and this is 5 o'clock in the evening. You can see those storms move through. Once the storms move through, the Cape will start to fade out because conditions start to get cooler, a little bit drier. And it's a very muggy atmosphere. All right, and then the atmosphere could refire a little bit tomorrow, but probably less of a thunderstorm threat for the Mid-Atlantic tomorrow. But we do definitely have some surface-based Cape. All right, but when the sun's out, when it's hot and it's muggy, I mean, I'm not too thrilled with it, but be happy because that does help reduce the life of coronavirus, the hot and muggy conditions, and the fact that the sun is out until the severe weather comes, obviously. Now, in terms of the wind shear here, the wind shear could be pretty high, obviously, if we look through the day today, and here you go. All right, 2 p.m. we do have some shear. Obviously, the Mid-Atlantic, we have some stronger wind shear values right now. All right, and even through the day tomorrow, we definitely do have a little bit of shear coming through. All right, and this is Friday. This is 2 a.m. You can see another little batch of severe weather start to move through, but the threat is going to be there this afternoon into overnight for the mid-Atlantic. Now, in terms of the supercell composites here, all right, if we look, there was your supercell composite values, and here we go, and potentially 6, 8 out of 50 on the scale there, so some pretty high values of some supercell composite, meaning the chances for supercell storms to develop, and that could be potentially pretty dangerous. Because obviously we know supercells is a damaging kind of thunderstorm that moves through during the threat of severe weather. Now, in terms of the significant tornado parameter, this is kind of the same thing, except this is saying what's the threat of some damaging tornadoes. And it's possible. South central Pennsylvania, there's some widespread areas, northeastern Maryland as well. All right. And I mean, if we have some significant tornadoes, that would be pretty devastating because obviously the conditions are coming together. Not the most favorable conditions, but the conditions are coming together for some severe weather development today in the mid-Atlantic. Now, in terms of the wind crossovers, when you're talking about developing a potential tornado, obviously you need the winds to come from one direction, from the south. All right, it could be or one direction at the surface, and then at 5,000 feet, it may need to come out of different directions. So let's see if we have that, because that can really develop that spin in the atmosphere for those tornadoes. And obviously the surface-based cape is also there, even though I already showed you that, but that's just part of the map. I can't really control that. Now, in terms of the wind crossovers, we definitely have them. All right, if you look closely here towards the mid-Atlantic coastline, we got some winds coming out of the south-southeast at the surface, and at 5,000 feet, they're coming out of the west-southwest. And that creates your spin in the atmosphere and potential for spin for some tornadoes. I know I've explained that to you guys a lot. Now, this is all the NAM model, by the way. We'll be doing other models as well, but here is the NAM model. And now we're going to be focusing to the north-central and then the south-central, and we'll be switching models as well. Now, when we look at the north-central, okay, the conditions are going to be coming together here, and you can just look at how much CAPE we have in the atmosphere. All right, take a look at these CAPE values. We're talking about over 4,000, 5,000 joules per kilogram. That is excessive heat. All right, excessive energy that those storms are going to thrive off of. So the conditions are there. All we need is the moisture and for that thunderstorm to come through, and we got it. At least according to the NAM model anyway. Now, the wind shear is a different story. All right, a little bit. All right, the wind shear is a little bit weaker, but we still do have some pretty strong wind shear values coming near or behind those storm systems. So if the wind shear is here out ahead of the storm system, that would help to increase the threat of severe weather. Obviously, the wind shear needs to be here in time, obviously, because if the wind shear comes after the storms come through, then what was the point? Because the storm's already gone, and the wind shear is going to be kind of there for nothing. It's going to be hanging around for nothing. Now, in terms of the supercell composites, we definitely have that. It is widespread, and parts of western and southern Iowa could have a 47. I thought I saw 47. Yeah, 47 and 46 out of 50, which is way to the top of the graph. But even outside of that region here, we're talking about 14, 20 out of 50, so some pretty high values there and across western Iowa. And this is overnight too. We know that overnight tornadoes are over 2.5 times as deadly as daytime tornadoes. So that's why, even for all three of these regions, these tornadoes could be, if these severe weather could be forming overnight in all three of these regions that we're watching today. Significant tornado parameters will also be very high across southwestern Iowa. So that is going to be your best chance for seeing some significant tornadoes there, probably in Iowa, especially western Iowa as well. Now, in terms of the wind steering, obviously we need those winds to come out different directions now, and you got them here. You got some winds coming out the southeast at the surface and coming out of the west-southwest at 5,000 feet. So there is your spin developing. Obviously, the red arrows indicate your surface winds. Your blue arrows indicate your 5,000 feet winds. So we got those turning of the winds with height, and obviously that's called wind shear. Wind shear does help develop severe weather. It also weakens hurricanes. That's what I talked about in my Tropical Storm Cristobal video. Now, surface-based CAPE. All right, now we're going to the south of central United States, and here's your threat to the SPC outline. There's your region right there. All right, and let's take a look and see if we do have some CAPE. I'd say it's not that much, although at 2 p.m. we do have some pretty high CAPE values of about a couple thousand joules per kilogram, possibly. All right, and then that would help to increase obviously your thunderstorm threat, because again, we have that energy that we need for the thunderstorms to develop. Now the bulk shear, all right, that wind shear, do we have that? And this region does have a lot of wind shear that the other two regions really didn't have. The Mid-Atlantic didn't really have too much wind shear, but the South Central does have a lot, and there's your areas of purple and red. There's your increased wind shear. And there it is right there at about 11 p.m. Tonight, on Thursday night. There was your severe weather threat there at your lots of wind shear for northern Texas and the Texas Panhandle. Now, for the supercell composite, all right, here's your supercell composite values. And again, look at this threat right here. Got a little developing patch in Texas Panhandle of some potentially intense supercells. Obviously, a chance for supercells is there. And this is why it's important to look at the models. And by the way, in case you guys don't know, we are still in NAM model for now. Now, for the significant tornado parameters, they're a little bit high as well. Okay, there could be a cluster of storms that develop and potentially move their way from northeast to southwest. And there's your region right there of significant in the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma Panhandle. They have a decent chance for some significant tornadoes possibly. So please, everybody, if you're in any of these three regions today, and even outside of this, because obviously if you go back to the SPC map, I mean, look at the widespread area that is in a marginal risk today. It's covering pretty much the whole central United States and the whole Tennessee Valley and the whole mid-Atlantic region. How many people are in the threat for severe weather today, by the way, guys? It is over, okay, the value is over 109, almost 110 million people are under the threat or under the gun for some severe weather today. 110 million. That's about almost a third of our population, by the way, because I know the United States has about 330 million or so. So a third of our population here across the United States is under the threat for severe weather today. Obviously, again, slight is a little bit higher than marginal, but still marginal. One time, I mean, here in the Northeast, we were under a threat for a marginal risk of severe weather, and we actually got a pretty damaging, or a strong damaging thunderstorm. So just because the SPC doesn't declare the threat too high doesn't mean you let your guard down. Obviously, we've seen higher threats than this, but still, could be some very dangerous severe weather. Do we have those turning of the winds with height? That is the ultimate question across the south central United States. Honestly, I would kind of say no. I mean, if you think about it, if you look here at this region in Texas Panhandle, we do have the winds coming out of the southwest at the surface and the southwest at 5,000 feet. But if you go just to the east, we got southeast winds at the surface and southwest winds at 5,000 feet. So some areas, it's a very localized areas that do have some turning of the winds with height, but if you don't have that, it's going to be hard to produce that tornado. Obviously, that'd be good because I'm not sure many of you would want tornadoes to strike. Now, if we look at the severe weather threat, let's take a look at the simulated radar now for the Mid-Atlantic, starting with the Mid-Atlantic here. And here's your cluster moving right through eastern Pennsylvania there. There's your heavy cluster coming through at 11 p.m. tonight. Again, overnight tornadoes are very deadly. This could potentially be another derecho, or if not, just a strong cluster of thunderstorms moving through. There it is overnight. That's 1 a.m. on Friday. Little cluster moves through, and then that would pretty much be it. And we could have the threat for another line of storms coming through. This is midnight. This is midnight Saturday now. So this is overnight Friday into Saturday, and you got another line of storms coming through. So it's kind of a non-stop threat there for the Mid-Atlantic. Flipping to the north central now. Again, we're kind of going in the same order here. And again, depending on where you look, because if you look here, it doesn't look like too much. However, there's your line of storms coming through. Some intense pop-up thunderstorms coming up there through the north central United States. Just because we have the cape doesn't mean the storms have to develop. That just means the conditions are there for development. Matter of fact, if you look at Friday morning, some heavy thunderstorms moving through Missouri. So Missouri could have a damaging thunderstorm threat and through Saturday morning and Friday morning, I should say. Now, south central United States, again, there's your cluster. It's kind of hard to see according to the NAM model. There it is. It's right there because the map's very detailed. It's very precise. It's kind of sharp looking, so it's kind of hard to point out the thunderstorms, but the thunderstorms are there across the Texas Panhandle. Now, for the surface-based cape, again, we're going to switch to the GFS model now. Kind of going through and see what other models think. And here's a GFS model, 8 p.m. Your surface-based cape is right there. For the Mid-Atlantic, the threat is there. We do have some intense cape values, not much. I declare it more, 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is pretty high for this region because sometimes we don't see too much intense cape at this time of year in this region. Sometimes we do. So that would be something to watch here for the GFS. The bulk shear, according to the GFS model, is also there. All right, late this morning and through the afternoon, there's your wind shear setting up right there across the Mid-Atlantic. The GFS, keep in mind, doesn't provide quite as many severe weather maps as the NAM models. Obviously, it is not under my control. But there you go. There's your supercell composite coming right through overnight. This is 8 p.m. Friday night. Or I'm sorry, 8 p.m. Thursday night, excuse me. And do we have those wind crossovers? Obviously, that is very important in again, providing that spin for a tornado. according to the GFS, yes, we do have some winds coming out of the south at the surface and out of the southwest at 5,000 feet. So I'd say that the GFS model does provide some spin in the atmosphere to provide those thunderstorms. Now let's go to the north central United States here. And again, there is your cape setting up right there for eastern Nebraska, southern Iowa here. And if we look at the wind shear, do we have a lot of wind shear? I'd say we do. Could it be coming in a little bit late? Possibly, but the wind shear is there. The jet stream is going to help to provide that wind shear there. The high pressure system and the jet stream will be flowing around it. So some wind shear, yes. Obviously, the way this is setting up is, let me go back to this map so it's the full view. Obviously, we do have these high pressure systems setting up, and the thunderstorms are going right around that high pressure system because obviously that's the way they rotate. So the thunderstorms are kind of trekking around the high pressure, north of the high pressure, and then down through this way. So that's how these kind of thunderstorms are kind of developing, and the conditions are setting up too. I mean, we do have some favorable conditions for severe weather development. Now, supercell composite values, okay, according to the GFS model, they set up more across, southern South Dakota, northern Nebraska, and more so through western Iowa. And then it kind of fades overnight, obviously, once the thunderstorm complex moves through. But the threat will still be there. Now, I'm talking about like late morning, into the early morning. Overnight, in terms of like 8 p.m., 10 p.m., the threat will still be there. Do we have the wind crossovers? I would say yes. All right, there's Iowa. Here's your southeast winds at the surface, southwest winds at 5,000 feet, kind of forming an X there, if you just saw. It kind of forms an X, and there's your turning of the winds with height. There's your potential spin in the atmosphere. So even if it doesn't produce a tornado, definitely some straight line winds, even if a tornado doesn't develop in these kind of conditions. Now, wrapping up here in the south central United States, here's your surface-based cape. Okay, according to the GFS model, we do have some in the panhandle of Texas. Wind shear, I'd say, again, this region does have a lot more shear, and the GFS and the NAM both indicated that. So that would help, obviously, to produce some more, hail as well. Hail threat could be a serious threat as well. Supercell composites are pretty high. Here's your chance for supercells forming right there in the Texas panhandle, and about an 11 out of 50. So a decent chance for some supercells. When I say 11 out of 50, that's just not the probability, but also more how strong could those supercells get. So obviously, if it's higher, we have some stronger supercells, but we'll keep an eye on that. Now, do we have the wind crossovers? I'd say yeah. We do have some southeast winds at the surface, some southwest winds at 5,000 feet, indicated by those red and blue arrows. So the threat is there for some dangerous severe weather. So that's it for today's video. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. I am the Weather Dude, signing off. Till next time. Catch you guys next video.